Good evening, listeners of The Fold. You who drift in the hush between frequencies, between memory and forgetting, drawn here by static whispers and the things that echo long after the voice is gone. This is DrowsyTeller, where sleep doesn't come gently, and stories don't just soothe, they signal. Before tonight's descent, a tale of recursion, of fractured identity, of a voice not ahead of you but inside you, I want to ask, when did your clock last tick? Not the one on your wall, but the one you feel beneath your ribs. Has it been blinking strange hours lately? Have your dreams arrived early, or not at all? Tell me, where are you now? Alone in a dim room, eyes just heavy enough to blur the corners of the screen, or wandering a place you don't quite recognize, wondering how you got here again? Leave a trace in the comments. Or don't. Some echoes don't need reminders. They remember you. And if tonight's message finds a frequency in your bones, if it lingers like breath on glass or stains your silence with a hum you can't place, subscribe to DrowsyTeller. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We transmit them. And tonight's file? It's already waiting. Just don't answer. Until you're ready. Shall we begin? The Echo Protocol. Found. Audio File 1. Transcribed. Friday, 1:12 a.m. Source. Device of Michael Vale. Case file reference. Sleep theory. Incident Class B. Transcript verified. No audio modifications detected. It starts with a sound, not a voice, not a word. Just a faint static crackle, the kind you might hear when a mic brushes against cotton. Then a single inhale, sharp and uneven, like someone had forgotten how to breathe and suddenly remembered. And then the voice, "Michael, listen to me. I don't have much time. You're going to die." Friday, 4:17 a.m. It's already started. I'm you. Please, just listen. Don't answer. The file cuts abruptly. That's what played on my phone in the middle of the night at 1:12 a.m. Exactly. I was half asleep, scrolling through some dumb article about dogs that sense earthquakes before they happen, when the notification popped up. A new voice message. From my own number. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Maybe some app bug. Maybe I hit record accidentally. But I knew I hadn't. The timestamp was impossible. The file was labeled Audio 1, no title, no source. I tapped play. I heard that voice. My voice. And then I just sat there in bed, staring at the screen, while the blue notification light blinked like a heartbeat. The message was short. Maybe 12 seconds, but it felt longer, stretched. I played it again, slower this time. My voice, or whatever was using it, sounded ragged, rushed, not panicked, but fractured, like someone who had gone through something unspeakable and was trying not to fall apart. There was something else, too. Under the voice, a hum, almost inaudible, like an engine idling far away, or an old analog radio left on between stations. I didn't sleep. I sat on my floor in the dark, playing that message again and again, watching the waveform. I tried to share it, sent it to my own email. Nothing arrived. I tried again, to my Google Drive. File upload failed. Third attempt, phone restarted by itself. That's when I felt it. Not fear, not yet. Just this tightness behind the eyes, like my brain knew something I didn't. By 3 a.m., I was sure someone was screwing with me. Maybe Nolan from work. He's good with audio editing, and he's always had this obsession with time travel and quantum weirdness. But when I called him, it went straight to voicemail. I opened my call log. There was no record of the message being received, no entry. It was like it had never been sent, or had never needed to be. At 3:45, I stepped outside. My apartment complex was silent, the way it only gets on cold winter nights when even the birds forget to breathe. I needed air. I needed movement. There's a 24-hour pharmacy down on Hillside and 5th. I figured I'd walk there, grab some caffeine, clear my head, maybe check the security cameras on the way back. I made it halfway across the parking lot when I stopped. Something felt wrong. The air, it wasn't cold, not anymore. It was still, like time had hiccuped and hadn't started again. I stood there, staring across the lot at a parked car, a gray pickup, dented hood, out-of-state plates, engine off. But I could see a red light blinking faintly from inside. I took a step toward it. The pickup's headlights exploded to life. Not flickered, not turned on gradually. They flared like someone hit a switch and poured daylight straight into my eyes. I staggered back just as the engine roared awake. Tires shrieked against the pavement. The truck lunged forward, straight toward me. I ran, not thinking, not planning, just instinct. I veered left, heart jackhammering, shoes scraping asphalt. The truck slammed on its brakes 2 feet from the wall of the maintenance shed. I looked back, and the driver's seat was empty. No one. I swear to you, no one. The doors were locked. The engine died 30 seconds later, just stopped, as if unplugged from something bigger than the battery. When I got back to my apartment, the voice message was gone, deleted. I didn't touch it. It was just gone. But something new was in its place. A system notification I've never seen before. Plain white text on a black screen. Received. That's it, nothing else. I tried restarting the phone, hard reset, battery pull, nothing worked. And now I'm recording this, on a separate device. Not the phone, not the cloud. A cheap Olympus recorder I used back in college. Because if this is a joke, I want it documented. If it's not, I need to know someone might eventually hear this. I haven't told anyone yet. I can't. Not until I understand what the hell is happening. I'm not some crackpot conspiracy junkie. I write firmware for industrial routers. My biggest fear last month was whether my Tesla stock would bounce back. But now I'm terrified of the next notification sound. And the worst part? I know that voice was me. Not a recording, not a mimic, not a fake. Me, but not from now. From later. Found audio file. 2. Transcribed. Saturday, 3:37 a.m. Transcript verified. File corruption detected in final seconds. Audio partially distorted. I wasn't planning to keep recording. I thought the first file would be enough, some weird glitch, an isolated incident I could bury under logic and time. But something's changed. Something shifted last night. This morning, technically Friday morning, I found another message. Not a voicemail this time, not even a notification, just there, sitting in my recorder app, as if I had made it myself, named exactly like the first one, Audio 2. But I didn't record it. I didn't even open that app since yesterday. This one was longer, just under a minute. It started with a whisper, hard to catch at first, almost drowned out by static and what sounded like wind or breathing too close to a mic. Then my voice, not frantic, not desperate, just hollow. "She's already here," I said. "Don't talk to the woman in the blue coat. It's not her, it's the beginning of her loop." That phrase, the beginning of her loop, stuck with me. It felt clinical, cold, like something out of a lab manual. I played it again and again. The tone was wrong. I didn't recognize myself. It was like my voice had gone through some emotional taxidermy, gutted, posed, but still technically alive. The rest of the day blurred. I tried to distract myself. I worked, I cleaned, I cooked pasta I didn't eat. But that sentence kept crawling back behind my eyes. Don't talk to the woman in the blue coat. At 6:15 p.m., I saw her. I was at the gas station on Cortlandt, pumping fuel, pretending everything was normal, when she appeared at pump 7. Blue coat, heavy wool, buttons like old coins. She looked maybe 30, hair tied back, hands bare despite the cold. She wasn't facing me, but I swear, the moment I noticed her, she paused. Not flinched, not turned. Just stopped, like she felt the weight of my attention. And then she turned. She looked at me and smiled. That smile wasn't natural. Not fake either. It was rehearsed. Like she'd practiced it in the mirror 100 times until she got it perfectly imperfect. She walked toward me, not rushed, not slow, just deliberate. I didn't move. When she was maybe 5 feet away, she said, "Michael." Her voice was soft, familiar, too familiar. I didn't answer. I just backed up. 1 step, 2. "You don't recognize me," she said. No emotion in it. No accusation. Just observation. Like it was her job to catalog my confusion. I asked who she was. She tilted her head, said nothing. Then she said, "You're not supposed to talk to me." "Not yet," I asked again. She didn't blink. "You'll understand on the next pass," she said, then turned and walked away. I followed her, around the corner, across the parking lot, past the bus stop. But when I turned the second corner, she was gone. No car, no footstep, nothing. Just cold wind and streetlight. I drove straight home. The message was gone again, just like the last one. But there was a new file waiting on the recorder. Not a message this time. A background recording, nearly 3 hours long, recorded without input. I don't remember pressing record. I've only listened to the first few minutes so far. Most of it is just room noise. My apartment, the hum of the fridge, the creak of my desk chair. My voice, faint, muttering something I can't quite make out. And then, at minute 7, a different voice enters. Female, crisp, measured. It says, "Subject has made first contact. Loop integrity holds. Sequence continues." I stopped listening after that. I don't know who she is, but I know she knew my name before I ever said a word, and I know this is not over. I've started keeping the recorder on at all times now, just in case the next voice that speaks isn't mine. Found audio file 3, transcribed. Monday, 1:14 a.m. Transcript clean, background noise. Identified low-frequency oscillation approximately. 12 Hertz source unknown. This isn't sleep deprivation. It's not stress or burnout or grief in disguise. I've ruled those out. Whatever's happening is real, measurable, traceable. And tonight, for the first time, I can prove it. I spent the entire weekend reverse engineering the audio from the second message, the one that warned me about the woman in the blue coat. I isolated the frequencies under my voice. I don't mean the normal white noise. I mean the residue. It felt artificial, like a kind of carrier signal riding beneath the vocal waveform. I used a spectrum analyzer and ran it through some basic cleaning passes. What came through nearly made me drop my headphones. There, buried in the low bands, was a clear pattern. Morse code. Short, precise. Pulses. I translated it. 1 word. Tune. And a number. 12.063. That's a frequency, a real one. It sits just inside the HF band used for skywave military communications, long-distance stuff, typically encrypted, Civilians aren't supposed to transmit on it. Most don't even know it exists. I don't have a proper radio rig, but I pulled an old SDR unit out of storage, one I built in college for a weather balloon project. With a little calibration and a stupid amount of tinfoil on the windows, I got a signal. Weak at first, just low static. But at exactly 1:14 a.m., it changed. It wasn't a broadcast, it was a loop. My voice, my exact voice from the first message. Playing over and over, the same phrase. Michael, listen to me. You're going to die. 4:17 a.m. Friday. Only this time, the voice sounded cleaner. No phone compression, no distortion, just pure analog clarity, like it had been recorded directly into the air. I tried to record it using the SDR's software, but every capture corrupted after exactly 6 seconds. I'm not being metaphorical, not unplayable, corrupted, glitched, like the waveform had been chewed and stitched back wrong. So, I tried something stupid. I turned off the recorder, and I listened. The loop kept going. Then, halfway through what would have been the 5th playback, it changed. The voice broke pattern and said, "Michael, this is not the first time. You've already heard this. You've already tried." And then it stopped. Just silence. I sat in my chair for a long time, maybe an hour, staring at the radio window, watching for any flicker in the signal. Nothing else came through. But then, something new. My phone buzzed. I checked it. No notifications, nothing open. Battery dropped by 13% in a second. The screen flickered just once and then returned to normal. But when I opened my file browser, there was a new folder, named Recordings. Inside, one file, labeled simply 3, length 22 seconds. I played it. It started with breathing. Mine. Staggered. Like I'd been running. Then a sound, a door slamming. And then she said not to answer. You did. That's what started it. The signal only latches when you acknowledge. You answered. You opened the lock. That last word, lock, echoed, as if it wasn't part of the recording, but something the device itself reacted to. I swear my phone vibrated when the word hit. Not an alert, not haptic feedback, something else. That message isn't in the app history. It doesn't appear in any system log. I copied the raw file to my computer and checked the metadata. Created tomorrow, Monday, 11:27 p.m. I know what this sounds like, but none of this is coincidence. The messages come through when the SDR is running. They ride on a frequency I shouldn't be able to hear. They time themselves to when I'm alone, awake, listening, and worse, I think they're coming before the phone gets them, like they're buffering in reverse. One last thing. I reran the frequency capture from earlier, the part with my voice loop. Slowed it to 1/4 speed, boosted the sublayer range. There's something under the words, not a voice, a tone, pulsing, like a heartbeat, but not human, not mine, not anymore. Found audio file 4, transcribed. Tuesday, 2:00 a.m. Transcript verified. Background audio shows multiple sound layers. Human voice. Echoes, low modulation. Pulse. All files originated locally. Device location pinged twice within same coordinate range during file timestamp. Device reported inactive during recording. This recording wasn't planned. I'm not even sure I hit the button. But the light on the Olympus flashed red when I woke up, so I know it's rolling. And I know something happened again. I found a video this time. It wasn't on my phone. It was on the security system I installed myself 3 years ago. Motion triggered, local only, no cloud storage, no network connection. The files are written directly to a separate micro SD, rotated every 48 hours. Nothing leaves the drive. At 7 minutes past 1, a clip appeared, dated tonight, labeled automatically, motion detected, front walkway. It's short, 18 seconds. The angle is fixed. Facing my front door, porch light flickering like it always does when the weather's damp. Nothing strange at first. Then I walk into frame. Only I didn't. I didn't leave my apartment. I didn't stand in front of my door in a gray hoodie, barefoot, arms at my side like dead weight. But the video shows me there, motionless, staring at the peephole. My face isn't visible. The light cuts hard across the frame, drowning my features in glare. But I know the posture, the angle of my head, the tilt in the shoulder from an old high school injury. That's me. He doesn't move. Not until the very last second. Then, in a single twitch, he turns his head, just enough to look straight into the lens, and smiles. That part, that smile doesn't belong to me. There's a tightness in it, a pull, like someone's using muscles they don't understand. I paused the video there, tried to scrub frame by frame. But after the smile, the footage corrupts. It doesn't freeze or glitch. It warps, like the pixels are trying to rearrange themselves into something else. Some frames go entirely black, then invert, then display binary flashes that shouldn't be possible on analog capture. I pulled the card, slotted it into a reader, and exported the clip. Now, here's the part I can't explain. When I saved it to my laptop, the file name changed on its own, from motion detected, front walkway, to simply, he returned. No input, no file edit, just renamed automatically. I tried duplicating the file, renamed the copy. 10 seconds later, it reverted again. That's when the lights went out. Whole apartment, total blackout, and not just the power, the battery backups too. My laptop died mid-charge. Rotor reset. The fridge stopped humming. Every connected system, even the wall clock I don't remember ever needing a battery, froze at 2 o'clock exactly. 17 seconds later, the power returned. Just like that. No surge, no flicker. Like someone flipped a master switch. I checked the timestamp on the original video again. It was created at 2 o'clock. Exactly. Which means it hadn't existed when I first saw it. Which means I saw it before it existed. Which means either time is folding in on itself, or something else is playing with its rules. The voice returned after that. Not through the recorder, through the vents. I was sitting in the hallway, back against the wall, laptop dead in my lap, when I heard it whispering from inside the floor duct. At first, I thought it was just settling pipes, pressure from the heat kicking back in. But the rhythm was wrong, too fluid, too measured, words hidden in breath. I crawled toward it, held my phone down near the grate, and hit record. This is what came through. You followed the wrong thread. He's already here. You're not the subject anymore. You're the echo. There was no mouth, no throat, but the voice was wet, if that makes sense, like it had been pulled through water. I didn't sleep. Again, I just sat there, listening, trying to piece together how I'm supposed to act like this is still my life. Then, an hour ago, I checked the video one last time. The figure, the one that looked like me, it's closer now. The new file shows the same timestamp, the same angle, but he's on the porch, not the walkway. Closer to the door, closer to me. I haven't opened it, not yet. But I think he has the key. Found audio file, 5, transcribed. Wednesday, 3:03 a.m. Transcript verified. File integrity confirmed. Voice analysis shows psychophysiological distress, increased breathing rate, dry mouth, audible hand tremors on microphone surface. Foreign vocal elements detected between 12 and 14-second mark. There's something wrong with my reflection. It started 20 minutes ago. I got up to wash my face. I hadn't slept, obviously, and I looked like it. Red eyes, blood vessels like broken wires, skin like wet paper. But when I leaned toward the mirror, it wasn't just exhaustion staring back. It was delay. A single frame of lag. Not glitchy, not overt, just off. Like a badly synced live stream. I moved, it followed, but slower than it should have, enough to make my spine twitch. I tried testing it, raised my left hand, counted the milliseconds before the reflection responded. The lag wasn't constant, it corrected itself, as if it noticed I was watching too closely. That's when I saw the mark. It was just under my jaw, near the right ear, a thin crescent of bruised skin, purple and green. I touched it in the mirror, reflexively, but when I pressed my actual neck, nothing. Smooth, no bruise, no pain. Only in the reflection. I backed away. The mirror didn't. My reflection stood still, holding the position one beat too long. Then it blinked. Not lazily, not tired. Precisely, I haven't gone back to the bathroom since. The voice came again tonight. The actual one. Mine, or a version of mine. From the recorder this time, not the vent. Another automatic file appeared at 2:56 a.m., time-stamped 5 minutes into the future. Labeled simply 5. 29 seconds long. Most of it was whispering. Breathless. Uneven. I made it too far. It didn't like that. I tried to go beyond the loop, into the in-between, but something's there, waiting. I saw the others. They didn't have faces, only skin, pressed tight, like vacuumed. I think they used to be me. The voice coughed. I heard dry heaving. Then, the final words, cut short by distortion. You'll feel it soon. In the teeth, like heat. That's when it starts folding you. That line, folding. It hit something in me I didn't know I feared. The folding started half an hour ago. It wasn't metaphor, it's pressure. A kind of internal torque. My ears keep popping without cause, like cabin pressure at high altitude. I can hear a high tone now, even when all devices are off. Not in the ears, in the bones. It vibrates at the base of my skull, behind my teeth, beneath my ribs. I don't think it's just sound. I think it's a trigger. I recorded my sleep last night. Not with the Olympus. I set up a condenser mic rig attached to the bed frame, programmed it to capture any anomalous sound. This morning, I found a file I didn't remember starting. 93 minutes long. For the first half hour, there's only shallow breathing. Mine. Then, at 31 minutes in, another breathing pattern enters the recording. It's synchronized, perfectly aligned with mine. But it's not an echo. It precedes my inhalation by a fraction of a second, like something predicting it. I ran it through phase analysis. The secondary breath has a vocal imprint nearly identical to mine, but inverted, as if mirrored, not reversed, mirrored. Left becomes right. Phase becomes anti-phase. Then I heard the click. At 54 minutes, there's a distinct sound. Metallic, light, hollow, like a door latch. That's when my breathing changes. I stop snoring. My breath becomes shallow, almost panicked. But I don't move. For 20 minutes, I breathe like someone being watched and choosing not to react. And then, the whisper. Clear, purposeful. A third voice. Feminine. Calm. You are aligned now, it says. He will enter through the mouth. As before. Then silence. I don't remember any of it. Not the breathing, not the sound, not the words. But when I woke up, my mouth was sore, my gums swollen. I bled when I brushed my teeth. I think something was in me, or left me, or both. I found something else today in the old cassette drawer, a recording I made in high school for a media class. Same recorder, same device I've been using for all of this. It's labeled Test Interview 1. The voice on the tape is mine, young, nervous. I ask the subject their name. I expect a friend's voice in response, but the voice that answers is me. Now, my voice. Now, on a tape from 17 years ago. Michael Vale, it says, but not yet, not really. That was the last line on the tape. Then it snapped. The tape snapped physically in the middle of a playback. I haven't opened the bathroom door since I saw the reflection move. But I can hear something behind the mirror now. Breathing, synchronized, and just a half beat ahead. Found audio file 6, transcribed. Thursday, 1:01. AM transcript verified. File contains overlapping dialogue from 2 instances of primary subject. Audio suggests distinct temporal signatures. Transcript synthesized for clarity. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. I woke up to a sound I've never heard before, a kind of reverse thunder, like the sky inhaled too fast and forgot how to let go. Not loud, not violent, but absolute. It swallowed the silence. There was no echo. I opened my eyes. The power was out again, though I hadn't noticed until the clock on my microwave blinked nonsense when I passed it. Every appliance in the apartment had reset itself, but the recorder hadn't. Its red light was already on when I picked it up, already taping. A new file waited, marked 6. No timestamp, just there, like it had always been. I played it, and I heard them both. Me and me. 2 versions of my voice, layered over each other, not quite synchronized, like stereo tracks drifting out of phase. The first voice was shaky, anxious, speaking in short bursts. She's coming back. I saw her again in the reflection. She's closer. The loop is tightening. I tried staying awake. I tried keeping the mirrors covered. Nothing works. It just delays the sync. Then the second voice. Calmer, more distant, almost resigned. She's always been coming. That's how the sequence holds. She's the carrier. She delivers the signal, through image, through memory, through time. You're not delaying it, you're refining it. I stopped the file, hands trembling, not because of what I heard, but because of what I recognized. The first voice? That was me. Now the second? It wasn't older or younger, it was after, beyond something, a postscript version of myself. I kept listening. Don't go under the stairs, my voice said. No matter what you hear, no matter what it says, that's where it begins. Not begins, the other voice corrected. Continues. You've already gone. That's why you're hearing this now. I looked across the room, toward the hall closet, the one with the panel that opens under the stairs. I hadn't thought about it in years. Haven't touched that door since I moved in. That's when it started knocking. 4 slow taps, then a pause, then one more. Software measured. Rhythmic. I didn't move, not at first, but the recorder was still running. And something in me, maybe the same reckless part that keeps reading the message before deleting it, needed to know. I opened the closet door. The panel under the stairs was already ajar, though I swear I've never opened it. Inside, darkness, not shadow, not poorly lit. Darkness like a curtain, like absence, and within it, a shape. It was me, Again, crouched, knees against chest, one eye visible in the thin sliver of light, bloodshot and unblinking. But this version of me was wrong. The skin too pale, the lips too dry, a mouth slightly open, teeth red as if they'd been grinding glass. His fingers were shaking, not with fear, but anticipation. I didn't speak. I couldn't. But he did. "You opened it," he whispered. "You always do. That's how they come through." I stepped back, tried to close the door, but he reached forward, not fast, not aggressive, just inevitability. His fingertips brushed mine. The moment contact was made, the apartment shifted. I can't describe it any other way. Every object in the room rippled, like it existed in layers and suddenly forgot which one it belonged to. My phone rang. A sound I haven't heard in days. It wasn't a ringtone. It was the tone from the original message. That pulse. That call. The caller ID read Michael Vale, and underneath it, a single word. Correction. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just let the call ring out, and the darkness under the stairs receded with each chime, like it was never there to begin with. When I played the recording back later, there was something new in the background. A voice I don't remember hearing live. Not mine, not hers. Male, crisp, clinical. It said, "Sequence breach detected. Cross-instance collision logged. Source thread, unstable. Intervention required." Then the static rises, not like noise, but like a scream being flattened into a line. I've unplugged the mirrors, I've sealed the vents, but it's not enough anymore, because now they don't need to come in. Now they've shown me the way out. Found audio file. 7. Transcribed. Thursday, 10:47 p.m. Transcript verified. Multiple speakers present. Primary voice remains consistent with subject. Additional vocal patterns unregistered in voice print database. Signal artifacts detected in low frequency band 7.9 Hz. Origin unknown. I heard myself scream today, not in a dream, not in a recording. From the other side of the wall. It was the exact sound I made when I shattered my ankle cliff diving in college. The same pitch, the same ugly throat catch at the end. I hadn't heard that noise in over 10 years. But tonight, at 10:47 p.m., exactly, it came through the drywall between my bedroom and the guest room. A clean, clear, real scream. But there's no one in the guest room. There hasn't been for years. I knocked, no answer. I opened the door, empty, but cold. The kind of cold that doesn't live in air but in matter itself. I stepped inside, and that's when I noticed the device. It was sitting in the center of the rug, a tape recorder, not mine, not any model I've seen before. Matte black plastic, with no branding, no buttons. Just a reel spinning silently beneath a sealed glass cover. I didn't touch it. Just knelt down beside it. The reel kept spinning for a few seconds, then stopped. Click. A voice played. Her voice, calm, precise. Like she was reading from a ritual she knew by heart. "Subject has breached memory sync," she said. "Echo chain exceeding intended recursion. Thread integrity fraying. Deletion protocols authorized." Then silence, until I spoke. Only, I didn't. It was my voice, yes, but it came from the device, and it said, "Authorization denied. Subject is resisting. Counterloop initiated. The tape self-ejected." There's no tape. The entire thing, the machine, the sound, the words, disappeared when I blinked. I know how that sounds. I know the moment I write this down it becomes fiction. But I also know what I saw. My shadow was still on the carpet when the recorder was gone. I returned to the hallway. The walls looked wrong. Not changed, refreshed, repainted in their original color. I hadn't seen that shade in years. They were like they'd been rewound. That's when I checked the Olympus. A new file had appeared, labeled 7. But unlike the others, it was nearly 5 minutes long. The waveform was jagged, bursts of silence interrupted by erratic vocal activity. The first voice was mine, breathless. She's in the floor now. I didn't expect her to migrate. She's moved beneath the crawl space. I heard her whispering to something, or someone. They respond in reverse, but I understand the shape of the answers. Then a second voice emerged. Not mine, and not hers. Masculine, but bent. Like the pitch had been stretched, like the throat had been lengthened too far. "Michael Vale," it rasped. "You are being copied, not duplicated, repurposed. Every time you remember, the loop strengthens. Every time you doubt, the signal decays. Do not doubt. You are becoming useful." There was something underneath that. A sound like wet paper folding inward, like lungs collapsing and reforming. Then I heard myself scream again, louder this time, and this time it was me, because it came from my own mouth. But I wasn't in pain, I was asleep. I had dozed off while listening. I know this because I woke with tears on my face and blood on my palms. I must have clenched my fists in the dream. I must have... Number. No, not a dream. The mirror in the guest room is no longer a mirror. It reflects, yes, but not me. The reflection is someone else, something else. Same eyes, different intent. He smiles faster than I do, and he doesn't blink when I do. I backed out of the room, closed the door. It locked itself. No mechanism, no sound, just locked. The Olympus vibrated. New notification. An audio file appeared, not numbered. It was named, "We are almost synchronized." I didn't press play. I didn't need to, because I already knew what it would say. Found audio file 8, transcribed. Friday, 1:13 a.m. Transcript verified. Background audio contains minimal environmental signal. Psychoacoustic effects detected at specific markers. See line 87. Subject. Exhibits deep temporal disorientation. I didn't sleep. I think I haven't for days now, though I'm no longer sure how long a day actually is. The clocks have lost sequence. The sun rises at the wrong angles. My phone calendar skipped Wednesday entirely. I spent the night pacing. Floorboards I know by heart now creak at unexpected tones, like they're learning a different language beneath my feet. And somewhere under the house, something is mimicking the pattern of my steps. Just a half beat too late. 1:13 a.m. came without warning. It was felt, not read, like a pressure shift, like air suddenly listening. That's when the recorder activated itself. The Olympus had been off. No batteries. Removed entirely yesterday after the mirror incident. But the red light came on, slowly, deliberately, as if waking up with intention. New file. No name this time, just a timestamp burned into the metadata. 1:13 a.m. I hit play. I expected my voice, but it was hers again. Not through the device, not through speakers, in the room. It filled the space with a presence that didn't echo, didn't vibrate. It just was, like sound carved from thought. She spoke. He's trying to bypass the iteration. It's a primitive defense, an instinct. That's what makes him viable. That's what makes him dangerous. Then a long pause. Footsteps, my own, but recorded from above. And I haven't left this room. Another voice entered. Mine. But not like before. This voice was calmer. Too calm, devoid of resistance. I see now, I said. I thought I was hearing echoes. I wasn't. I was becoming one. You weren't warning me. You were absorbing me, she replied, almost warmly. You gave consent when you remembered the first message. The moment you internalized it, you accepted your role. Identity is recursive. You're not Michael Vale anymore. You're the remainder. Then silence. The rest of the recording, 2 full minutes, is just a slow, building hum. It's layered, complex, not mechanical, organic, like muscle tissue humming through glass. When I played it back at half speed, the hum revealed rhythm. Structure, a code. Morse, again, buried deep in the pattern. 4 words. He is watching himself. The power in the apartment flickered once. Not out. Just dimmed, like someone took control of the current and pinched it to a whisper. And then the mirrors began to sweat. Not fog, not condensation, sweat. Warm droplets forming along the inner side of the glass, trickling down like veins. I touched one, just one. The drop was thick, not water, viscous, slightly pink. It left a stain on my skin that hasn't gone away. I went to the front door, just to look. He was standing there again, me, only less now, less me, more aligned. He wore the same hoodie I haven't seen in weeks, but it was inside out, his shoes untied, head tilted to the same angle I'd seen in the hallway footage. He smiled, and I realized this wasn't a reflection. This was my replacement. I didn't open the door, but I looked into his eyes, and I felt it, that fold. The same internal pressure that had begun beneath my ribs had now reached my skull. It wasn't pain, it was resonance, like we were tuning to the same frequency. 2 notes on opposite ends of time, drawn together by design. I heard myself say, from nowhere and everywhere, permission granted, sync in progress. And the lights dimmed again, not out, just low enough that I could see the silhouette inside the walls, breathing in sync with my own. The recorder stopped on its own. No file saved, no playback. But I still remember the sound, because I'm still hearing it. Found audio file 9, transcribed. Friday, 3:30 a.m. Transcript verified. Voice matches subject. File contains destructive audio layer at final segment. Data corruption confirmed on multiple devices. Caution advised. It's almost time. The numbers don't lie anymore. They just hum. 3:30, no minute hand needed. You feel it now, like a countdown layered beneath your heartbeat, like gravity shifting sideways. He's been pacing outside the front door since 2:04 a.m., always counterclockwise. 9 full rotations per hour, no more, no less. I stopped watching after the 3rd hour, but I can still hear the scrape of his foot over that loose patch of concrete by the stairs. And worse, he started speaking, not out loud, not through the door, through my own voice. I was recording this file when it began. Just static at first. Then the recorder glitched, spliced its own signal, and my voice started responding to me before I'd said anything. Out of sync, pre-spoken. I played it back. I say, I didn't open the door. Then, before I say anything else, I say, but I will. It's layering now, collapsing past and future into the present like stacked glass. I can hear him in my own throat sometimes, waiting, like I'm warming up a place for something that needs my tone to survive. I found the hard drive today, the one labeled with duct tape and the number 40. No other markings. It was hidden beneath the stairs, where the reflection once crouched. Same place, same dust, untouched. Inside were 41 audio files. Not 40, not 42. All of them marked in my handwriting. But I don't remember making them. Each one is a failed escape. A voice, mine, trying different things, driving away, burning the mirror, swallowing the battery, none of them work. Every file ends with the same line. Friday. 4:17. It resets. One file, though, file 39, is different. It's only 3 seconds long. My voice, crying, then silence, then whispering. If you're hearing this, you already did it. I've stopped trying to stop it. Now I'm just mapping it, learning the edges, the folds, the rules. Whatever's happening, it follows a shape. There are constants. The loop resets at 4:17. Contact with him accelerates resonance. Mirrors invert reality after exposure. Voices are always one step ahead, until they're not. I recorded my own voice on analog tape again, hoping the medium would resist the sync. I spoke one simple sentence. I will not open the door. I played it back. The tape hissed. My voice repeated it. Then, in the final second, another voice, riding the edge of the audio. But you already did. I don't remember doing it, but the lock is unlatched now, and the floorboards near the hallway are damp. Not wet, damp, used. Like someone's been pacing there barefoot for hours. The lights flicker only in reflection now. To the eye, everything is steady, but catch them in a screen or glass, or the glossy sheen of a turned-off TV. They stutter. Loop, correct, repeat. I stood in front of the mirror again, not to check for him, to see what version of me would look back. He blinked first this time. Then, without opening his mouth, I heard his voice in mine. You created the echo when you refused to forget. I wanted to ask what happens at 4:17, but I already know. It ends, or it starts again. I don't know anymore, but I've begun recording a new message. One I won't listen to. One meant for the next me. Because now I understand. The message I heard on that first night, the voice that warned me, it wasn't trying to stop it. It was setting it in motion. Found audio file. 10 transcribed. Friday, 4:17 a.m. Final entry. File manifest ended. Cross-pattern signal detected during closure. Initiating containment flags. The walls are breathing, not metaphorically, not in that poetic, paranoid way that means I'm cracking. They're inhaling. The drywall pulls in with a soft groan, then exhales with heat, like lungs pressed beneath the paint. Every time the cycle completes, dust lifts from the floor like it's been waiting. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm something worse. I'm familiar with all of it. There's a moment before drowning, a final second where your brain no longer fights and your body remembers floating. That's what this is. That second, stretched into eternity. The recorder activated itself again. Of course it did. It's been on since 1:13. The red light hasn't blinked once. But this file isn't like the others. It didn't appear on the Olympus. It appeared everywhere. My phone, my old laptop, my fridge display, my watch, my smart TV. Off, disconnected, buried in the hall closet, lit up with the timestamp, 4:17 a.m. And then they all began to play it at once. My voice, whispering. Calm, clearest it's ever been. I did it, I said. I thought I failed, but I didn't. I reached it. I reached the end. There was no background noise, no hum, no mirror clicks, just me. Loop integrity broken. They couldn't hold me here forever. Not all versions survived transition, but one did, one made it far enough to warn the others. Then silence, until something else began to speak. Not a voice, not language, a rhythm, a signal, not heard, received. The feeling was instant, a pulsing inside the teeth, the spine, the blood vessels behind the eyes. Every syllable burned into me like it had been written in heat, not sound. And I understood it. Not in English, not in thought, in pattern. The message was simple. Sequence complete. Cycle accepted. Transfer initiated. And that's when I saw him again. Not through the door, in the room. No knock, no entry. He was just there. Standing where I stood the night I first heard the voice. Same posture, same shadow. The same mouth that smiled too fast. But now he looked right. Aligned. He stepped forward. I didn't move. He opened his mouth, my mouth, and I heard everything. All the voices, all the warnings, all the screams, the static, the breath beneath breath, the countdown, the collapse, the me that burned the mirrors, the me that ran, the me that opened the door, the me that recorded these words hoping to stop what already started. It was never about stopping it. It was always about becoming it. He placed his hand on my chest, warm, steady, real. And then he entered, not like possession, not like horror, like merging. My heartbeat stopped for exactly 4 seconds. I counted them inside my eyes. When it returned, it beat to a new rhythm. The walls stopped breathing. The lights went still. The recorder stopped. And I understood. Not as Michael Vale, as the signal. I am not the subject anymore. I am the carrier. I am the message. I am the one who will call next. And you will answer. The return below. Fragment from onboard engineer's log, DSV-9 Sentinel. Mission log file 7. Recovered from partial black box memory chip. Timestamp confirmed. The sea didn't feel right today. There was no storm, no wind. The ocean was flat, not calm, expectant, like a breath held for too long. From the deck, it looked more like glass than water, and the crew kept quiet as the sun set behind us, sinking into the Pacific like it wanted to disappear first. DSV-9. Sentinel launched at 0500 hours. A standard 3-person descent team, Dr. Lane Huxley, mission supervisor, Jules Cordero, pilot, myself, engineer and systems manager. The target coordinates were locked, directly above a trench fold in the southern sector of the Mariana Basin. No name, just a designation, Delta Point. The dive began smoothly, systems green, pressure hull intact. At approximately 6,000 meters, the lights began to dim, not fail, dim. All diagnostics returned normal, but the internal LEDs softened as if absorbing something we couldn't measure. No power drain, no anomalies in the lines. It just looked darker than it should have. At 7,000 meters, the first deviation occurred. Depth sensors cycled, reset, then reported a false depth of over 18,000 meters. Huxley leaned forward immediately, tapping the glass. "That's not a glitch," she said. "It's a reading." I told her that was impossible. The trench maxes out at just under 11,000. That's bedrock. She didn't argue. She didn't blink. She just wrote something in that little notebook of hers and muttered, "It's deeper now." By 7,800 meters, the current vanished completely. No movement, no drift. The nav system flagged a warning, neutral vector. Jules checked thrusters. Still functional. The sub wasn't sinking. It was being held. We activated exterior floodlights. The water responded slowly, as if thickened. At full beam, we could only see a few meters ahead, but something moved through it, a ripple, circular and precise, radiating outward and then curling back inward like a tide folding in reverse. Huxley was the first to see it. She stood up, leaned toward the viewport, and whispered, "There." At 8,100 meters, the object came into view. It was embedded in the seabed, half covered in silt, resting at an angle that suggested it hadn't fallen. It had emerged. Perfectly spherical, roughly 5 meters across, jet black, but not reflective. It didn't cast shadow. It consumed light. The more we illuminated it, the less of it we could see. I performed a quick surface scan. No radiation, no heat, no sound, no materials matched known Earth alloys. But still, it hummed. Not through sonar or device. In the chest, a pressure, a pulse. Huxley pressed her palm to the glass. "She's breathing," she said. The word "she" unsettled me, but I didn't correct her. We extended the manipulator arms to retrieve a sample. The moment the claw neared the surface, every console screen on board went blank for exactly 6 seconds. Then everything returned, except the time. Every onboard clock reset to 01:13 a.m. We were 4 hours into the dive. There was no way to explain it. Huxley insisted we continue. She overrode the safety protocols and initiated retrieval manually. The claw touched the object, and instead of resistance, it passed through the outer layer like pushing into warm clay. Then the claw froze. Motors locked. Entire hydraulic system seized. I cut power to avoid burnout. Nothing responded. Then the object moved. Not on its own, the seabed shifted around it, parting like something was giving permission. The sphere rose from the sand without propulsion, just rising, and nestled itself perfectly between the claw arms, as if offering itself. We didn't lift it. It entered the sub's grip. 37 seconds later, our depth returned to normal, 7,900 meters. Currents resumed. Lights brightened. All diagnostics cleared. We began the ascent, slowly, deliberately, with the object clutched beneath us. I noted the internal atmosphere was warmer, though the sensors denied it. Huxley just stared at the object through the monitor feed. "She's awake," she said again, softer this time. No one answered. As we passed 6,000 meters, the first data spike appeared in the nav logs. A tremor, deep and faint. Not at our location, thousands of miles away. Somewhere beneath the western edge of the Pacific Plate. It wasn't even large enough to qualify as an event, but the timing was precise. Timestamp 01:13 a.m. The same moment our clocks had reset. I logged everything, every anomaly, every unexplained flicker, every wrong number. I don't think it mattered. Because the object is with us now, and the ocean, silent for hours, just made a sound. Not a wave, not a current, a low, resonant note. A breath. And it wasn't ours. Recovered. Waterproof notebook, scorched along spine. Found aboard Caldera, Station Debris Field, Northern Pacific Drift Zone. I haven't slept since we surfaced. The dreams start the moment I close my eyes. Not nightmares, not hallucinations. Something older. Simpler. They don't show me anything. They remember me. The object was transferred from Sentinel to Containment Hangar 3 at 0800 hours. I insisted on immediate isolation, but Admiral Keener overruled. Standard atmospheric chamber, 12 meters by 12, with automated monitoring from above. The technicians argued about what to call it. Specimen didn't fit. Device was wrong. Someone wrote artifact on the intake form. I crossed it out. It's not an artifact. Artifacts don't grow. From the first hour inside the hangar, the object began changing. Not visibly, not at first, but the room itself shifted. Humidity rose by 10% without climate change. The lighting dimmed subtly, but only in the infrared range. Cameras required recalibration every 20 minutes, and no one wanted to be near it for long. Jules quit the mission. Walked off the platform, didn't say a word. Just packed and left on the first helicopter. I don't blame him. Before he left, he told me something that's not in the logs. He said he heard whispers inside the sub, soft and circular, like phrases curling back on themselves. He said they were coming from the comms panel, even when it was off. He didn't imagine it. The object began emitting a low-frequency pulse sometime in the early afternoon. Not constant, not rhythmic. It comes in breaths. The wave registers at 0.16 hertz. Below audible range, but strong enough to affect balance. Several crew reported vertigo. I ran spectral scans, and in the static between pulses there are patterns. Almost language. No syntax, no structure, just intention. I've stood in that room with it, watched it as closely as possible without touching it. Its surface looks solid, but it isn't. Under certain angles, it blurs slightly, as if it's not in the room so much as projected into it. It absorbs light in a way I've never seen. We shine lasers on it, and the beam simply vanishes. Not reflected, not bent, just gone. It shouldn't exist, but it does. I wrote a note on the back of my glove today. Remember, this is still Earth. I needed the reminder. We attempted a surface biopsy, robotic probe only. The needle never made contact. As it approached, the arm decelerated, then froze, like the force wasn't mechanical, but decisional. It refused. The tech, Anders, ran the test again. And again. No impact, no reading. Then, after the third attempt, the object changed. It exhaled. That's the only way I can describe it. The hangar pressure dropped suddenly, just for a second, enough to make the vents shudder and the lights blink. Every sensor went dead for 6 seconds. Not failed, just null. Zeros across the board. And in that null time I felt something. A presence, yes, but not watching, noticing. Like it finally became aware we weren't just environment, we were touching it, and it noticed. I left the chamber, walked the platform for over an hour. While I was gone, it began emitting heat. Not high, only 4 degrees above ambient. But the walls started sweating. Metal condensation, running in vertical lines from ceiling to floor, as if gravity had tilted toward it. The floor beneath the object vibrated at irregular intervals, not shaking, pulsing. I instructed the team to cease all physical interaction. No one enters without me present. No one talks inside the room. Silence is protocol now. At 2200 hours, something else happened. A low harmonic, almost a chord, was recorded from inside the chamber. No speaker system could have created it. It came directly from the object. The waveform showed a perfect harmonic structure, impossible in natural resonance. But when we overlaid it with the Pacific tectonic map, the peaks of the frequency aligned exactly with fault lines. All of them. Not some. All. It's not communicating with us. It's communicating with the Earth. I submitted the data to the mainland labs under file name 12. I don't expect an answer. But I've made a decision. Tomorrow, I'm going inside the containment chamber alone. I'll observe for 1 full hour. No cameras, no noise. If it is aware, it already knows I'm coming. And I need to know what it wants. Compilation of internal seismic dispatch logs, audio surveillance files, and regional news excerpts from Pacific territories. Sources independently verified via Caldera Station transmission logs. Data merged under emergency protocol registration, Delta Uplink, code level 5. Dispatch log segment, NOAA Pacific Seismic Node 7, received at 0321 a.m. Microtremor detected offshore Miyazaki Prefecture, depth 21 kilometers. Initial magnitude reading 5.6, revised to 7.3. No foreshock, no tectonic buildup. Immediate surface rupture and ocean pullback reported. Alerts issued to Western Pacific 90 seconds later. Internal radio chatter from Caldera Station's hangar 3 begins to glitch. Playback file 14 reveals irregular high-pitched interference overlapping routine comms. Audio cleaning identifies layered frequency resonance, not interference, but signal, hovering at 0.16 Hz, identical to the pulse emitted by the object. Technician audio log, time-stamped 0329 a.m. Thought it was my headset. The signal just built like the feedback, but cleaner. I took the set off, and I could still hear it, not in the ears, in my bones. That's the only way I can explain it. It's like the floor was whispering through my ribs. By 0330, seismic event markers began multiplying. Not just Miyazaki. Ripples traced westward, Micronesia, Taiwan Strait, all within minutes. On the deck of Caldera Station, condensation appeared on every exterior window, thick and streaked in long downward arcs, like something breathing just on the other side of the glass. Caldera systems flagged sudden oxygen dips in the hangar. Environmental sensors registered 0.7% reduction. Not hazardous, but distinct. Several station personnel reported what they called audio afterimages, impressions of sound that remained long after noise ceased. Most described it as rhythmic. Some described it as whispers, in a language they almost understood. By 04:10 a.m., technician Erin Kopeski collapsed in Corridor 3. Her blood pressure spiked, eyes dilated, unresponsive. When stabilized, she muttered one phrase over and over, "It's listening. It's underneath all of us." Meanwhile, news feeds across the region began pushing unscheduled alerts. A Japan Airlines commercial flight over the Pacific reported that the ocean surface beneath them appeared flattened, unnatural, like glass stretched taut. Pilots described seeing an enormous shadow shape just below the surface. Circular, unmoving. Estimated size, multiple kilometers wide. No radar signature, no heat. Video footage corrupted. At 4:23 a.m., Caldera received a fragment of a transmission from a monitoring buoy east of Guam. Static, then a voice. Not one recognized by the platform. "You removed the anchor." 16 seconds of silence. Then, "The sea is remembering." Signal ends. Following that moment, the object's pulse accelerated from 0.16 to 0.2 Hertz in under 2 minutes. Station crew reported minor nosebleeds. Instruments overheated. One seismic technician ruptured his eardrum from inaudible resonance. Dr. Huxley, via internal report, attempted direct observation again. Her notes from that hour remain incomplete, found partially burned near the isolation chamber. The final legible sentence read, "It's not resting, it's restrained, and we just loosened the knot." At 05:02 a.m., the first floor of Hangar 3 shifted, not shook, shifted. Concrete rose 4 centimeters along the northwest edge, as if pushed from beneath by something vast and slow. The object hovered, for precisely 6 seconds without contact or propulsion, just suspended in air, and then settled again, gently, deliberately. Sentry cameras caught all of it. The footage is stored under File 15, but every frame degrades halfway through. Heat bloom. Red distortion. Like the camera itself reacted in fear. Back at NOAA Command, tremors spread to Chile. 7.1. In Indonesia, sea turtles washed ashore in coordinated spiral patterns. From New Zealand, a fisherman submitted a cell phone video. In it, the surface of the sea visibly inhales and exhales. He drops the phone. The video ends with him whispering, "It's under all of it. Not just the ocean, the crust, the bones of the world. It's been waiting." Emergency protocol escalation began at 6 a.m. The Caldera uplink jammed. Automatic systems reconnected 37 minutes later. Only one message transmitted in that window. She opened her eye. She remembers the sky, and it is not this one. Extracted from internal DARPA field memo fragments, seismic analysis transcripts, and recovered log files labeled 12. Compilation authorized post-incident under Black Level EarthSafe Directive. Classified elements redacted. The file arrived at 0900 hours UTC without routing. There was no sender, just a file name, 12. No subject line, no attached metadata, but inside, a complete data set. Terabytes compressed into a stream of raw numbers, audio bursts, and recursive mathematical notations that didn't resolve under standard models. The origin was unmistakable. The pulse. The object in Hangar 3 had begun transmitting more than pressure or hum. It was speaking. Not in human phonemes, not even with alien cadence, but through structure. The report's compiler, believed to be Dr. Lane Huxley herself, had broken the stream down into 2 layers, substrate modulation and harmonic sequencing. She called them the voice and the skeleton. In the accompanying log notes, she wrote, "The substrate speaks with the breath of the planet. But the skeleton is older than Earth." Using custom translation protocols, DARPA's sound engineers isolated repeating fragments. Each fragment was cross-referenced against known languages, tectonic vibration profiles, and even infrasonic animal communication. None matched. But when layered over real-time tectonic shift maps, the kind that model pressure buildup along fault lines, the waveform did align. Perfectly. Fault by fault, the signal mirrored Earth's pressure points, as if speaking through them, not to cause stress, but to guide it. The phrase entered the log via filtered spectrogram, auto-translated by heuristic AI running a dozen languages at once. It pulled out something coherent. The body is waking. Following the extraction, the object's outer structure changed for the first time since discovery. Its surface, previously matte and void-like, began to ripple, not in liquid waves, but in geometric shapes. Triangle, hexagon, perfect spiral, and something that did not map to Euclidean structure. Cameras caught only partial frames. Each time a shape formed, nearby electronics glitched. Some began to show visual echoes, the room duplicated at slight offsets, like parallel feeds caught in frame. Instruments reported impossible values. Temperature below 0 Kelvin, pressure measured in negative pascals. Sensors stopped describing the object as mass. They returned undefined. One log file from Hangar Monitoring Station shows a critical shift. During a 16-minute silent period, the object's internal composition, previously unreadable, pinged back a scannable result. Composition: carbon-organic matrix. Density: self-adjusting. Core: pulsing structure, possibly vascular. Notes appended by technician Elmer Rojas read, "It's not a machine, it's an organ." Dr. Huxley's next recorded observation, found in log page 6, "It's not contacting us, it's using us as relays. Our presence is helping it root itself. We are the wiring." Shortly after that entry, global seismicity spiked again, event timestamped at 10:24 a.m. A tremor measuring 6.9 in the Atlantic Ridge. 10 seconds later, an identical pulse echoed beneath the Gobi Desert. 2 landmasses. No connecting fault. And yet, synced to the signal. DARPA simulation teams mapped the sequence across global tectonics. The result, a spiraling pattern. Not unlike a Fibonacci sequence, but stretched across thousands of kilometers. The axis point, dead center, was the site of the original extraction, delta point. The center of the spiral wasn't a location. It was the removal site. A memo from DARPA Subdirector Ethan Mallory surfaced after blackout. His handwritten note, attached to the 12-file summary. "We didn't retrieve an object. We severed a connection. It wasn't sending a signal. It was one. A physical form of resonance embedded into the Earth's crust like a neural relay. Now the system is compensating, rerouting, and maybe preparing." In the last recording of that day, the seismic sensors stopped recording tremors in numbers. Instead, they started recording them in intervals. Not magnitudes, not energy, time signatures. The Earth had begun keeping rhythm, like something was rehearsing. The hangar was supposed to be sealed. The sign-in log said no one was inside, yet when the night cycle began at 01:42, camera 19 caught motion. Not movement, motion. Not something crossing the frame, something warping it. Technician Shane Alvarez entered through Auxiliary Bay without authorization. His security fob didn't register on digital logs, but platform power logs show a brief voltage drop near sub-entry gate. Duration, 6 seconds. Pattern matches previous object pulse windows. His headset, still recording, captured the rest. "I had to see it." His whisper begins, breath shallow. "They say it's just sitting there, but they're wrong. It's never still, it shifts, only when you blink, like it knows how long you're looking." His footsteps echo, slow, padded by the low hum of internal machinery. Then silence. No hum, no background resonance, only breath. Then, "It's bigger." The camera attached to his vest confirms it. The object, originally 5 meters in diameter, now spans nearly 7. Not from expansion, from unfolding. Like parts of it were never fully visible, only obscured in dimensional angles we couldn't perceive until it allowed us to. Alvarez steps closer. He holds out a flashlight, though the beam vanishes immediately. The object swallows it as it always has, but now it begins to respond. The surface ripples, slowly, precisely. One fold becomes another, like black silk in slow wind. Then, something underneath pushes up. Not a shape, a texture, an imprint, a hand, 5 fingers, not human, longer, boneless looking. The surface rises with it, mimicking, like reflective memory. And as Alvarez watches, he breathes out, "That's not new. That's us." Then, from the object, a sound, not the hum, a click. Soft, like bone breaking underwater. The object opens, not fully, just a slit, razor thin, running 1/3 of its diameter. From within, light, but not our light. The lens on the body cam records no spectrum. The screen goes white, then flickers. When visual stabilizes again, Alvarez is kneeling, head bowed, still breathing. "I heard them," he says. "I don't know how. Not words, just us, before us. What came through before? He looks up at the camera. His pupils are fully dilated. His left ear bleeds. He doesn't react. It's a map, he whispers, but not of stars. A map of what's underneath us. Where it connects, all of it. Every fault, every ridge, every plate. It's not tectonics, it's pathways, nerve lines. A pulse begins. Not from the object, from the floor. The camera shakes. Dust lifts in sudden upward spirals. Alvarez stumbles backward. A new noise emerges, like water boiling in a sealed drum. Steam coils from the edge of the object's base. The concrete surrounding it begins to darken, crack, not from heat, but from stress. The crack widens, 5 meters in length, in a spiral curve radiating from the object's center point. Instruments later describe it as a precision fracture. Not random. Engineered. Alvarez's final words. Before the feed degrades. It's not a vault, it's a socket, and we just pulled the plug. Then, impact, all power to hangar 3 severs. Alarms fail to activate. Environmental readings flatline. When teams arrive minutes later, the object is intact, unmoved. But Alvarez is gone. No blood, no clothing, no remains. Just his headset, still recording, resting on the ground. Capturing the final seconds of ambient sound in the sealed chamber. Faint, but layered, a whisper. Played backward, the phrase reveals itself. Return the key. It is not alone. At 0600 hours UTC, the Pacific Quiet Zone lit up. 17 buoys across a radius of 4,000 kilometers transmitted identical readings. Abrupt, directional energy pulses, each precisely spaced at intervals of 23 seconds. Seismic arrays initially misread the waveforms as underwater detonations. But no thermal bloom, no displacement wave, no damage to surrounding crust. Only a signal. Structured, regular, global. DARPA Seismic Core relayed the readings to their visual modeling team. A simulation was run. When mapped against fault lines, the pulses aligned perfectly, from the Philippine Sea to the East Pacific Rise, across the Nazca Plate, the Antarctic Ridge, the Mid-Atlantic Fracture Zone. One of the analysts, Dr. Corbin Wells, overlaid the pulses in sequence and let them run at accelerated speed. The map produced a spiral, not logarithmic. Something else. A reverse spiral, compressing inward, terminating not at the origin point in the Mariana Basin, but at coordinates previously dismissed as oceanic void. What lay at the terminus point was a tectonic shadow zone, a region where seismic waves routinely vanish. Huxley's handwritten note, scanned and archived just hours before her disappearance, reads, "They're not shaping the Earth. The Earth is the shape. This is not movement. This is memory activating." At 0722, satellite Sentinel Delta captured visible deformation in the Pacific Shelf. No quake registered, but the water shifted, as if the ocean floor subtly inhaled. A circular impression, over 300 kilometers wide, appeared overnight. No ships reported tremors. The sea just flattened, then slowly recoiled. Within 1 hour, 3 more pulse zones appeared: North Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and beneath the Ross Ice Shelf. In each case, pulse intervals held exact time signature: 23 seconds. DARPA, recognizing the sequence repetition, reclassified the phenomenon from tectonic event to directed emission. The source was not simply responding to Earth's structure, it was triggering it. Further complicating interpretation, sensor buoys near Guam began recording audio frequencies above the human hearing range, often referred to as ultrasound whispers. In one transcript, when audio is slowed by a factor of 600 and inverted, the following pattern emerges: wakebone, wakewater, fold returns. The phrase is repeated 6 times in slightly varied syntax, always ending in the term cradle fracture. Platform Caldera's remote operator dispatch, still active at the time, reported a terrifying anomaly at 09:15 a.m. We lost the shadows. When asked to clarify, the operator responded, "There are people in the corridors, but the lighting doesn't track them. They don't cast. They walk past light and it just forgets them, as if the body is real, but the memory of light isn't there." Following that transmission, several secondary tremors struck the Alaskan coast, Portugal's western seabed, and a dormant rift in the Indian Ocean. None were connected geologically. All struck on the 23rd second of their local hour. Huxley's archived logs included visual sketches made by hand, 12 interlinked shapes, each corresponding to a pulse cluster across the ocean floor. The center symbol appears nowhere in modern data. Instead, it matches a petroglyph recovered from the submerged Yonaguni monument near Japan. The shape is a circle within a downward-pointing triangle, split by a vertical cut. Huxley's own annotation. Nerve map. Not planetary, cellular. As if the planet is not whole, but part of something, larger, interconnected, and we've started a reawakening response. A final report, intercepted from internal DARPA chat logs between seismic leads. They called it tectonic behavior, but it's too clean, too perfect. This isn't stress release. It's code, and we're the ones translating it by walking over it. Shortly after, the object in Hangar 3 emitted its first new tone in over 48 hours. It matched the rhythm of the Earth's core resonance. The sound was soft, subtle, almost human. If mapped to waveform audio and run through human speech approximation, it mirrors a single phrase. She is close. She began with the sea, not with the destruction, not with the screams, not even with the object. Her first words, the ocean breathed in. Drone footage supports it. At 03:57 a.m. platform time, all wave activity surrounding Caldera ceased. Not died. Reversed. Tidal motion pulled outward like a vacuum response, but not radial, spiraled. The spiral held form for 12 seconds. Then, a shudder. From above, it resembled a ripple in time itself. Keene described it differently. I felt it in my feet, like the floor became lung tissue, like we were standing on something exhaling after centuries of stillness. The station's emergency beacon activated without trigger. Motion sensors malfunctioned, lights blinked in binary-seeming intervals. When reset, the emergency logs recorded an anomaly in the oxygen feed systems. The air had become thick, not fog, not smoke, something denser. Microscopic sampling later showed no particulates, but the density ratio of the surrounding air matched shallow seawater. People began hallucinating, but it wasn't panic, it was recognition. Keene again. I saw my father, but he was dead. Had been for years. He wasn't there, not like a ghost. He was moving wrong, mirrored, like he was being shown to me by something that only half understood how to show people. Across the platform, crew wandered out of their stations, doors unlocked on their own. Huxley's lab opened itself. Time lock bypassed without command input. Inside, the object hovered half a meter above the floor, rotating. Silent, but the rotation didn't follow physics. It curved, forward, then slightly off-axis, then again. Not chaotic, rhythmic, like a pendulum drifting through dimensions we couldn't track. Then the voice returned. For the first time, it came through the station's intercom system, not a scream, not a sentence, just sound. A note, 6 seconds long, layered in tones that vibrated the hull. Sensors failed. 100% data loss. But the human response was worse. 3 crew members collapsed immediately. Keene described their bodies as softening, like tendons no longer supported mass. Not melting, not liquid, just unanchored, like they were beginning to forget they were made of form. Another walked into the sea. No struggle, just calm. The drone captured only fragments of the walk. At the edge of the platform, the man turned, mouth moving. No sound. Then he stepped forward and was gone. Not submerged. Gone. The water closed upward around him. When the object released its second pulse, the sky changed. Not in color, in structure. Cloud formation above the platform twisted into spiral bands, matching the exact curvature of the ocean below. Lightning formed but arced horizontally. Audio sensors failed again, but an unfiltered ground mic recorded something from beneath the sea floor. Do not breathe her name. She is not yet formed. At that moment, Keene claims she saw something impossible. Not the object, but what lay beneath it. The hangar floor cracked fully open. The object drifted downward, as if settling into place. Her words. It was like a joint realigning, like it was meant to go back inside, like we'd pulled it from a socket, and now it was realigning the limb. The platform began to break at 04:29. Not violently, just apart. Walls unhinged. Glass retracted inward. Steel supports warped not from heat, but from reversed memory, metal remembering a different shape. Keene ran. As she climbed the north escape stairwell, she heard voices again. Many. Not from speakers, from the air. Each whispered the same 3 words, over and over. We remember water. The flood came next, but not from the ocean, from underneath. Platform Drone 7 captured the last image before transmission ended. Water erupting upward through steel panels, rising not as waves, but as columns, fluid, upright, pushing into the sky in narrow shafts like arteries. Keene was found adrift 36 hours later, clinging to a buoy nearly 90 kilometers north. Dehydrated, barely coherent, repeating one sentence between every breath. She is not rising. She is returning. Her interview ended when she began whispering the phrase in reverse, word for word, perfectly mirrored. She did not know she was doing it. At precisely 0300 UTC, seismic monitoring stations across 5 continents detected the impossible. Not a quake, not a collapse. A silence, a global absence of tectonic noise. For 6 minutes and 17 seconds, the Earth's crust ceased all measurable vibration. No background hum, no plate tension. The Schumann resonance, Earth's heartbeat, flatlined. Then it began again, but different. It returned in a tone, not white noise, not geological data. A perfect harmonic centered at 0.16 hertz, layered with overtones that resembled voice. Seismic linguists, a niche until that moment, began decoding the resonance not as signal, but instruction. DARPA classified the harmonic stream under Language Event 1. Their translation software, built originally for deep ocean whale dialect modeling, isolated 6 sequential sound blocks. In combination, they formed meaning. Not in words, in intent. Approximate translation. Verified by independent AI consensus. Cradle breach. Sequence aligned. Opening permitted. Internal map resolves, return core. While language specialists struggled, Earth itself reacted faster. At 0335, Sentinel-class satellites observed geometric anomalies in the Pacific tectonic shelf. Dozens of circular ruptures, each a perfect kilometer across, emerged along plate lines. None were explosive. The crust simply parted, retracting in spirals, as if something buried had begun to stretch beneath it. Ocean displacement was minimal, impossible. The water didn't rush into the holes, it was held out. Photosynthetic plankton glowed in the pattern of a massive sigil, later reconstructed via bioluminescent mapping drones. The symbol was not human, not mathematical. Its lines traced a curvature beyond compass. From Antarctica, a tremor finally registered. Magnitude 8.1. Not from tectonic collapse, but upward thrust. A new fissure appeared in the Ross ice shelf, 300 kilometers long and perfectly straight. From within, light, but not visible. Perceived. Radar blackout followed. A moment later, 5 separate listening stations, from Mongolia to the Mariana Basin, recorded a phrase. In different languages, different voices, different mediums, all unconnected. But the message was the same. The line is drawn. In Tokyo, a data technician collapsed after reporting the waveform felt like someone spoke directly into my spine. In Chile, birds flew in concentric circles for over an hour, never once. Landing, in Canada, a remote forest lake began to spin clockwise. A single whirlpool opened in its center. Nothing fell in, yet its depth increased by over 200 meters in under 15 minutes. Back at the Pacific site, an autonomous submersible drone captured final footage of the object. It had changed completely. Now semi-translucent, rotating in 6 distinct directions, the surface showed depth, not infinite, but dimensional, like it contained entire rooms of movement. Internal pulses ran through it like slow lightning. Not chaotic, coordinated. At the center of its core, something blinked. Not light, not I, a choice. Then the object spoke. Not aloud, through the drone's sensors. The transmission was unidirectional, pulsing in mathematical intervals, now rendered into English through AI post-processing. The final log file, labeled 33, contained a phrase repeated 23 times. Return is access. Body must complete. Then a new line, never repeated. Those who carried her above must carry her within. At 0400 UTC, the sea ruptured. Not broken, not shattered, opened, as if the planet had accepted an invitation delivered eons ago. And the host had finally arrived. Flesh, light, sound, history, all at once. The earth did not scream. It inhaled. Dr. Lane Huxley went silent for nearly 11 hours following the event now designated as the opening. Her return transmission was not speech. It was a single, sustained data stream, approximately 2.7 gigabytes in size, made up entirely of neural emissions. No human recording device on the platform had the capacity to transmit that kind of signal voluntarily. The stream included biochemical pulses from her own mind, emotion-encoded memory clusters, partial dreams, and fractalized thought sequences only replicable through live brainwave capture. When decoded through predictive AI, a coherent narrative emerged. But it did not start in her voice. It began in the objects. Consciousness was never a crown. It was a circuit. You carried her. Now you remember. At precisely the same moment her neural broadcast ended, the Earth's Van Allen radiation belts destabilized. Not failed, but twisted. Satellite footage from 3 separate low-orbit craft showed an impossible phenomenon. Aurora spirals blooming in equatorial regions, inward, as though Earth's magnetic poles were collapsing into a center beneath the surface. Dr. Huxley, recovered hours later by one of the last active drones, was physically intact, but altered. Her blood showed a complete loss of Rh markers. Her left eye no longer responded to light, not blind, simply unresponsive, as though decoupled from her nervous system. Yet she could see. She spoke in full sentences, calm, deliberate, not broken, not delirious, but layered. Her speech had two threads. The dominant one was her voice, slow, tired. The second came milliseconds after every word, lower in pitch, non-human in cadence. She said, "It's not a parasite, it's not a weapon, it is not even a she, it is completion. She used us to come back into phase with her body, and that body is the Earth." When asked what the object truly was, she paused, then whispered, "A memory gland, a cosmic scar. The Earth forgot what it once hosted. We helped it remember." Meanwhile, other objects were detected, 7 more. Each one emerged from deep-water fault points, in complete silence. They were not sent, they were called. Each mirrored the first object's frequency precisely. They spun in slow orbit above massive, organic-looking fissures, openings in the planet that could not be explained through natural processes. Global plate movement accelerated by 0.6%. Not catastrophic, rhythmic, all registered to the same signal, greater than the pattern completes. Form follows memory. Structure flows from pulse. A DARPA imaging team constructed a final visualization based on satellite seismic convergence data. It showed 12 vast lines stretching from pole to pole, overlaid with circular nodal points, nerve centers perfectly spaced. When combined, the pattern resembled a skeletal system. Not human, not animal, planetary, spinal even. The Earth was not housing these objects. It was becoming them. From orbit, astronauts aboard ISS Delta reported an optical illusion they couldn't explain. The continents appeared subtly closer together, as though the Earth's curvature had increased. But instrumentation showed no change in diameter. Light was bending differently around the planet. One of them reported a phrase she hadn't heard, but understood, like it had been installed in her. She said, "We are inside her nerve. The world is waking from itself." Dr. Huxley stopped speaking 23 minutes before she died. Her final words were not recorded in sound, but heat. Her body temperature rose rapidly, not burning, just glowing. Skin cells began to reflect light in unnatural ways, forming a perfect spiral under her clavicle. Autopsy was never performed, because her body was no longer traceable by satellite 30 minutes after her final breath. Just a warm imprint on metal, and a hum, faint, like a sleeping heart inside the floor. The sky didn't open, the Earth did. At exactly midnight UTC, the signal began, not from above, not from orbit, from beneath. It did not interrupt programming, it replaced it. Across every device capable of receiving electromagnetic input, televisions, phones, radios, even analog shortwave bands long thought silent, came a signal burst. No voice, no music, just a slow, pulling tone. And then, an image. A live aerial shot from a point somewhere above the South Pacific. At first, viewers around the world believed it was a satellite view of oceanic water, blue and calm. But the camera didn't move. It didn't pan. It simply stared, and beneath the surface, depth. The water wasn't reflecting anything. It was displaying something. Viewers began to see form, not literal, not outlined, but sensed. The shape below was colossal. It stretched wider than the Mariana Basin, curled like a resting body that had never moved. Or moved so long ago the ocean itself had molded around it. And at its center, in a recessed pit of impossible depth, an opening. Like a mouth, or an eye, a perfect spiraled aperture. slowly rotating inward. The structure of it defied resolution. No matter how sharp the feed, the center always flickered slightly, as though your brain was skipping over it, unable to keep it in view. The light inside wasn't bioluminescent. It wasn't earthly at all. It responded to the watcher. People would later describe it not as seeing something, but as being seen. From inside. Then came the voice. No lips, no movement, no sound wave. Yet every person, every language, heard it in their own tongue. Even those born deaf felt it in their minds, clear as memory. The fracture is open. The connection is rejoined. You walked her surface. Now you are within her body. And then something new, a name. Not one spoken, but delivered like a taste or a scent locked behind the teeth of consciousness. Untranslatable, but every viewer remembered it as if it had always been just out of reach. The screen flickered. The sea began to glow in perfect concentric circles, spreading outward from the eye. Waves didn't rise. They parted. Ships did not sink. They simply vanished from radar, swallowed not by current, but by directionlessness. As if gravity itself had shifted orientation. The feed trembled once, then zoomed down. Into the eye, not through motion, through collapse. As if the lens was being pulled inward, spiraling into dimensions smaller than atoms and larger than planets. And just before the signal ended, a shape emerged, not seen, recognized. A silhouette, towering, symmetrical, bones made of folded matter, a mind without skull, a face without eyes, a form that was not watching the world but finishing it. The feed cut to black. No sound followed, only silence. Then the ground began to hum, and somewhere, everywhere, the sea breathed out. End of transmission. We heard her. Extracted from internal memo chains, satellite telemetry logs, and preliminary system status reports following incident SCL-91-Event 1. Distribution unauthorized. Redacted segments marked where necessary. At 0412 UTC, the SCL-91 Orbital Reconnaissance Platform, classified under Tier 2 Deep Black, positioned over the western edge of the Indian Ocean, ceased transmitting heartbeat pulses. The dropout was instantaneous. No ramp down, no taper, no command packet preceding it. Just absence, like it had never existed. Technician Maddox, seated at Terminal 5 in Observation Bay Delta, flagged the anomaly 12 seconds into the blackout. He was told to reboot local monitoring and reinitiate ping. He tried. The satellite didn't respond. Ping failed. Checksum returned null. Not error, null. The system had no memory of ever having been connected to SCL-91. The lead operator ran a full orbital trace. The satellite was still there. Trajectory unbroken. No drift, no energy spike, no debris. A visible object, casting shadow, consistent with its expected mass and reflectivity. But it had no ID handshake. It was there, and not there. At 0424 UTC, without fanfare, the connection returned. A soft reactivation pulse. All telemetry returned, frame perfect. It was as though nothing had happened. But something had. The satellite's internal clock was precisely 12 minutes behind Earth sync. Every heartbeat packet, the standard microburst telemetry signals, was offset. When the system attempted forced resync, SCL-91 resisted. Not with a fault, with intent. It transmitted an override request, a protocol that shouldn't exist in its firmware. An internal designation never issued by command. Echo 910. System flagged it. Operators were told to ignore the anomaly and initiate standard data sweep. The sweep failed because SCL-91 was transmitting more than data. A new channel had appeared, an unregistered frequency outside any known military communication band, narrow and deep, buried just below the thermal bleed signature. It wasn't noise. It wasn't encryption. It was structured, not binary, not hex, something layered with a rhythm that didn't match any known compression standard. The file, labeled 1, was pulled. It contained a waveform with unnatural harmonics, 17 stacked pulses in a ratio that didn't correlate with any Earth-based modulation system. Analysis suggested non-repeating segments, each segment slightly different in density, amplitude, and fall-off curve. And yet they looped. One of the linguistics analysts in subsection 3, a woman named Cruz, listened to the loop through filtered output. She didn't say anything for almost 90 seconds. Then she stood, walked to her terminal, and typed the same sentence 6 times into the internal chat. "I think it's waiting." Then she disconnected her account and left the building. Another analyst attempted to reverse engineer the waveform. He ran it through pattern extrapolation, expecting nothing but artifacts. Instead, the file duplicated. Then duplicated again, each version slightly different, as if it were adapting to his attempts to read it. They called it recursion bleed, a signal that grew as you tried to interpret it. The deeper the team dug, the larger the data set became. From one file came 3, from 3, 9. Until eventually the system flagged a security alert, unknown outbound traffic from a secure node, traced not to the open net, but internally within the loopback interface. A signal that didn't leave the system, one that moved inside it. They shut the terminal down. Power kill. Manual cut. Still, one of the workstations in an adjacent room, unconnected to the analysis array, flashed once. A blue screen, a single word in low contrast gray, barely legible. Listened. The name of the file responsible could not be traced, but the recovery cache showed a temporary file tagged with creation date 0, time 0, as if it had no origin. A black site memo marked Priority 1 was circulated within 20 minutes of SCL-91's return. The order was clear, no external transmission. All logs physical only. Systems to remain offline until cleanroom inspection. The final internal note was handwritten on a sticky pad and left on the desk of the chief systems officer. 12 minutes is long enough. We should not have tried to resume. The paper smelled faintly of ozone. The timestamp on the desk clock was 12 minutes behind. It would not reset. And the satellite continued broadcasting. Quiet, constant. But now, with a new layer beneath every signal. Something small, something just out of audible range. A whisper stretched over the void. The file labeled 1 was quarantined, but within 3 hours, 6 new files had appeared in the local storage buffer. No external drives, no network transfers. The workstation in use was an isolated node. No uplink, no Bluetooth, no infrared, no wireless. Air-gapped, triple-caged. And still the files appeared. They weren't copies. Each had a unique checksum, different size, different digital signature. But all were built from the same unknown source, the return signal from SCL-91. And each one grew in complexity the longer it was observed. A pattern emerged. The files did not spread like malware. They unfolded, incrementally, as if reacting to attention. One analyst, working under authorization code Falcon 2, noted that merely opening the waveform viewer caused new data to append inside the files, not outside, inside. The header didn't change, but the internal data matrix began to develop depth, like the audio waveform was a topographic map of something not yet built. He began recording the process using screen capture software. 27 minutes in, his monitor flickered. The visualized waveform bent. Not a glitch. It angled toward him. Three-dimensional curvature began to form inside the timeline grid, like the data itself was turning toward the observer. The capture file corrupted. But when slowed and reconstructed, frame by frame, the video revealed a single frame at timestamp 17 minutes and 3 seconds. A shape. Not a word, not a face. Something geometric and alive, spiraled but segmented, as if it had vertebrae. Lightless, but reflecting faint internal motion. It disappeared on the next frame. The analyst stepped away from his terminal and left the facility. He has not returned. The AI-assisted interpretation unit was brought online against protocol. 3 files were uploaded into the simulation node. Within 5 seconds, the node crashed. When rebooted, the main display read, "Do not solve her." The phrase was not part of any system log or error code. Cybersecurity ran diagnostics. No breach, no infection, no external interference. The files were verified as clean, not viral, not hostile, simply evolving. That night, the surveillance camera above the observation terminal showed a flicker every 23 minutes. A single frame would drop. During playback, the camera's infrared overlay registered temperature increases in the workstation chair, as if someone was seated there, but no one was in the room. One technician joked that the signal had found its way into the walls. Another didn't laugh. She was reviewing the 7th file. She paused playback and asked, "Does it feel like it's watching you now?" Her voice was calm, but her pulse, as recorded by the biometric tracker, had tripled. The waveform had grown. Where before there were just pulses and tones, now there were substructures, symmetrical bursts that, when visualized, resembled phonemes. Speech, but not in any known language. Sound specialists attempted spectral deconstruction. The translation model found something. One sequence, labeled Pattern 4, appeared in every version of the files. When stretched across 5 octaves, reduced by speed factor 17, and inverted, it resembled a female voice whispering 5 syllables. She waits in mirrors, not a metaphor, a coordinate, a mode of entry. The linguistics team marked it as unverified and continued working. But the same line appeared again, in reverse order, encoded into a separate file. As if the signal was answering. The internal mail server was suspended when it began auto-generating draft messages in user accounts. None were sent. But the subject lines were always the same. SCL. 91 is no longer observing. It is remembering. And inside each draft, a string of letters, numbers, and punctuation. Always different, never repeated, not code. When fed into a linguistic model, the AI suggested an unthinkable possibility. The signal might not be trying to communicate in our language. It was using the operating system of the human mind. Rhythm, instinct, recursion, breath. One neuroscientist, reviewing audio from the 5th file, passed out in her lab chair after 90 seconds of unfiltered playback. Her EEG registered a pattern identical to REM sleep, but she was awake. Her first words upon recovery. It asked me where we all went. When asked to clarify, she cried. The team decided to terminate all access to the files at 0300 UTC, but at 0311 a new file appeared. Untitled. No extension. Not in the shared network. It was found embedded inside the BIOS log of a completely unrelated device, a 3D printer that hadn't been powered on in over a year. The file was empty, until the lights dimmed, and a sound began, faint behind the fan hum. The printer, still offline, began to heat its nozzle, and the signal whispered again. But this time, it was in your voice, reconstructed from corrupted facility surveillance footage, thermal logs, workstation memory dumps, and handwritten incident reports retrieved from the isolated containment lab in Section 9. Certain elements marked as sensorily reactive under Watch Level 6. The containment room was locked. No outside access, no remote connectivity, no powered ventilation beyond passive shielding. It had been built to store information deemed cognitohazardous, not by aggression, but by perception. The files brought in from SCL-91 were now kept there, divided across 7 isolated drives. No single device held more than 1 drive at a time. No drive was to be read within 2 meters of a reflective surface. That order was issued 72 hours after Cruz's final message. It's waiting. At 0516, one of the junior techs entered the room to perform a routine temperature balance check. She followed the protocol precisely. No wireless devices, no audio relays, no displays larger than 30 centimeters diagonally. Still, 15 minutes into the inspection, the door logs record a triple pulse, a code not used since the lab's construction. Manual override from the inside. The door unlocked itself. The room remained sealed, but something had changed. Inside, the technician was found seated at the desk, eyes open, unblinking. The screen in front of her displayed a file not present in any index, labeled simply 3. It contained no audio, no video, no text, just a single continuous grayscale waveform, cycling, rotating inward like a spiral drawn without a center. She spoke once before losing consciousness. Witnesses reported no visible mouth movement, yet the room's internal mic picked up a voice. It came back hollow, at once filling. Her body was later found to have no neurological trauma. But all photographs taken of her face from that moment forward appeared slightly off, as if her features had been reflected imperfectly, like a face remembered by someone who had only seen it once, long ago, through glass. Later that day, another workstation, in an entirely different section of the facility, began to glitch. Its user noticed a flicker in the center of the screen, not a program, not software, a small indentation, a black mark that appeared beneath the pixels, visible only at oblique angles. It moved when no one watched directly. Upon adjusting the contrast filter, the user discovered a mirrored duplication of the screen contents, as if a secondary, invisible monitor was rendering everything in reverse, layered just behind the surface. When the main terminal was disconnected, the mirrored image remained for 4 seconds, then slowly faded, not in sync with any display protocol. Engineers confirmed the screen had no secondary display layer, but thermal scans showed a heat shadow behind the panel, like a hand had rested there. For hours. That was the same day the mirror room failed. Room 11, reserved for electromagnetic polarization tests, was lined with 6 polished steel panels. Cameras inside ran continuously. During a scheduled system scan, the feed dropped, exactly 12 minutes. When it returned, the mirrors had all changed alignment, inward, now facing each other in a perfect, recursive triangle. But no one had entered. And in the center of the room, a smudge. Matte, gray-black, human in shape but subtly off proportion, as if drawn by memory filtered through an alien geometry. Footage from the blackout period could not be recovered, but audio sensors picked up 3 discrete bursts of infrasound. Mapped out, they formed 3 perfect syllables when visualized spectrographically. The sequence was compared against the previously isolated phrase, "She waits in mirrors." Match confirmed. The lab ordered all mirrored surfaces removed, screens covered, glasses prohibited, but the images kept appearing, in puddles, in coffee surfaces, in shut-down tablets. Shadows moved in sync with the observer, but always slightly out of time, lagging by milliseconds. A developer named Bray was found unconscious beside his terminal, having tried to encode the recursion files into a closed simulation chamber. His lips were moving soundlessly when security reached him. An EEG helmet recorded scattered speech, buried beneath theta waves. When processed through a rhythmic pattern match, the result was one line, greater than, "The gate is not made of material. It is perception folded inward." Following this, he did not speak for 36 hours, but he kept looking into blank surfaces, reflective tiles, scratched monitors. In one unguarded moment, he wrote in his palm with a pen, "I saw myself see me. It wasn't me." Surveillance review showed one anomaly. In footage from room 4, the glass panel beside a workstation showed the reflection of an operator who wasn't there. The room was empty, but in the glass, a figure, watching. Blurred but centered, looking directly into the camera. For one frame, the reflection raised a hand. The next moment, the monitor across the room blinked to life. No input, just one file, no name, no extension. When opened, the screen displayed a slow-turning spiral made of inverted audio waveforms, and at its center, a countdown. 12 minutes. The operator watching screamed and dropped the tablet. The countdown continued. No one touched it, and at minute 7, every reflective surface in the facility turned dark. Long before SCL-91 went dark, there had been another. Not a satellite, not by modern designation. It was listed in the archives as Unit 37, deployed in early autumn of 1997 under the obsolete THORO program. Its official mission, upper atmospheric density mapping over the Indian Ocean. Unofficially, it had been re-outfitted with a specialized spectroscopic payload designed to observe anomalous light signatures outside the visible spectrum. Unit 37 disappeared from radar for exactly 12 minutes. The event wasn't cataloged as a loss. The satellite reappeared, telemetry intact. But something was different. Engineers noticed a phase shift in the onboard atomic clock. Not miscalibrated, but operating ahead by 12 minutes and 14 seconds, violating known orbital relativistic parameters. It transmitted no error, but buried in its telemetry buffer was a non-scheduled pulse, a narrowband echo. It appeared once, 3 seconds after signal reacquisition, then never again. The file was labeled 13, stored on a dedicated BlackSite server, and encrypted with a cipher so complex it required a standalone processor to interpret. Even then, decryption failed, not because of encoding, but because the file contained no recognizable code structure, just data points arranged in spatial fractal configurations. A linguist was brought in. She lasted 2 days. Her notes, recovered from her room after her disappearance, were indecipherable. Not gibberish, just written in a script that no one could trace. The lines curved unnaturally, bent toward the page edges. At the center of each page, a single spiral, drawn again and again. On the last page, a word was written in English, carefully, again. Years later, when the Nix project was shuttered and its contents buried under 7 layers of digital noise, one analyst refused to let go. He had never seen the original data, but he tracked down one of the field engineers stationed at Delta Station, the relay outpost that first detected Unit 37 signal drop. That engineer was institutionalized after the event. The analyst posed his medical staff and scheduled an interview. The resulting audio log was fragmented, damaged by years of analog decay, but salvageable. The transcription follows. It didn't vanish, it folded. Like a paper crease, but time. It went behind itself. When it came back, the air tasted wrong. Not the air, the idea of air. They told us to stand down, but the screens, they wouldn't stay off. Even unplugged, they glowed. I saw her, in the static, not a woman. A pattern shaped like a person remembering it had been one. She smiled, but her mouth was on the wrong side. The rest was unintelligible, just breathing. And a long pause before a whisper. 12 is not time. It's the whole time goes around. The analyst later uploaded this interview into a secure archive, along with recovered NICS blueprints showing that Unit 37 had been testing not one, but 3 subsystems, the third of which had no listed function. In the handwritten field report retrieved from Delta Station, never filed, but found between the pages of a maintenance log, was a crude sketch. A circle, intersected by 3 curved lines forming a shape similar to an iris. Below it, scrawled in pencil, the eye didn't close, it blinked, and part of us stayed inside. That page bore 3 smudges in graphite where fingertips had pressed too hard. The prints matched none of the station crew. The same spiral symbol, seen in Cruz's post-incident imagery, had been drawn beneath. When this data was cross-referenced with recent SCL-91 signal patterns, the same spiral frequency recurred in 5-second loops. Perfect match. No drift, no loss. The same signal. Decades apart. Never acknowledged, never answered. Until now. By the 5th day, the signal was no longer static. It was speaking. Not in language, not in code, in structure. Within the growing stack of unclassified files pulled from SCL-91's return stream, audio engineers began identifying repeating subpatterns. Microbursts of frequency that weren't identical in waveform, but identical in cadence. Something like rhythm, but too precise. Too exact to be human. Yet too inefficient to be machine-generated. It pulsed with intentionality. The first to name it was linguist Dr. Lorraine Halberg, brought in from the retired ASA Cognition Index project. She called it fracture speech, a term from a long-abandoned theory suggesting that certain non-human intelligences might communicate through recursive exposure, embedding meaning not in symbols but in perception itself. Meaning through echo. She theorized that the signal was never meant to be heard linearly. Each playback rearranged its elements in response to the listener's mind. The same file would play differently depending on who and how it was heard. They tested this. 12 analysts were isolated in separate acoustic chambers and played file 10 simultaneously. They were told to transcribe what they heard in real time. The results were not just different, they were mutually exclusive. One heard a woman humming, one low mechanical breathing, one a child crying behind a wall. Several reported no sound at all, yet all recorded identical neural spikes in auditory processing regions, as if something had been heard directly inside the brain. Most alarming was Subject 9, who sat still for the full duration, eyes closed, no motion. When the file ended, she spoke in a slow, flat tone. She's not speaking in words. She's speaking in futures. Asked to explain, she began to describe an event. Not one that had happened, but one that would. In detail, time, location, weather, a traffic accident, a red light, the name of a street. 17 hours later, the event occurred, exactly as she'd said. She had never been to that city. They called the facility, shut down external testing, isolated the audio drives and locked them inside a Faraday cage. But one of the computers, not connected to the network, began running a background audio process. No file, no logs, just a memory spike and then a low hum. Security footage showed the operator staring at the screen, not moving. When approached, he whispered a phrase that none of the microphones picked up. His lips formed a single word. Later, through lip reading and enhancement, analysts identified it as again. The same word found in the 1997 notes. The same word that repeated once every 12 seconds in the inverted waveform from SCL-91's pulse files. A deep learning model trained to analyze emotional tonality was fed every recovered waveform from the incident. The AI refused to complete its analysis. Literally, its output chain terminated itself. One final string was produced, greater than "this is not information. It is intention." The signal was trying to teach, but the subject was not language. It was memory. And then, sleep changed. Across multiple departments, unrelated staff began reporting identical dreams. Not exactly the same, but stitched from the same fabric. The environment. Dim corridors, walls of liquid metal, blinking lights that did not blink in rhythm with the world. Every dreamer recalled a slow pulse in the walls, like a second heartbeat beneath their own. Some awoke, whispering things they didn't understand. Others drew spirals. One man, a technician who had never interacted with the files directly, wrote a full page of reversed phonemes in the break room. When played through a reversed speech decoder, it translated to, "You do not dream, you are being read." Halberg requested sleep studies. EEG sensors were placed on staff. On the second night, during deep REM phases, the machines began to hum in sync, even though they were on different subjects. A low-frequency pulse began to leak through the machines, syncing everyone's brain activity into a single waveform. Not metaphorically, literally. 16 human minds beating in sync, shaped by something they could not see. Not asleep. Receiving. The signal, it seemed, had stopped trying to speak. It was now listening. And something behind it was remembering us. It didn't stay inside. By the morning of day 6, the signal had moved, not through the network, but around it. At first, it was small. Interference reports from nearby university servers, broadband glitches in local observatories, unexplained checksum errors across archival drives that had never even been online. Then came the bleed. Audio techs across 3 continents, none affiliated with the SCL-91 group, began submitting public bug reports. Phantom low-end frequencies, static ghosts in clean samples, harmonies under voice recordings that weren't there on tape. A Swedish field recorder uploaded a soundbite from the Arctic Circle labeled simply, "No wildlife, no wind, no people, but something singing under the ice." The audio, verified authentic when analyzed spectrally, produced the now familiar, recursive spiral pattern, buried inside the waveform. A 3-tone pulse, matching the original anomaly from the SCL-91 reactivation event. The signal had jumped the gap. Social media picked it up before the protocols could. TikTok accounts began spreading a trend where users posted clips titled "Mirror Sound Challenge," recording themselves in rooms with no reflective surfaces, then playing back isolated tones. Dozens reported the same result. Playback audio distorted to include whispering, but only when standing near blank screens. Not active ones. Unpowered. The trend caught fire, millions of views. Then came the bleed-throughs, transcripts from Reddit threads on r High Strangeness and r DeepNet Chronicles began to circulate, compiling anonymous claims of shared hallucinations, recurring dreams, and time dilation. The most upvoted comment simply read, "I woke up at 3:12 a.m. All my clocks said the same thing. Even my analog one." I don't have an analog one. Another account posted a screenshot of a voicemail transcription titled Unknown, where the voice said in soft cadence, "She watches you from behind you. Mirrors are her lungs." The metadata tagged the voicemail as being received during a phone in airplane mode, with no active SIM. That same day, a radio telescope in northern Chile recorded a sub-terahertz burst while scanning deep space, not from above, but from below the horizon, traced to a terrestrial point, the upper atmosphere above the South Pacific, where SCL-91 had originally vanished. The telescope operator, unaffiliated with the defense sector, tweeted the signal's spectrogram for peer review. Within 3 hours, the tweet had over 70,000 reposts, 400 AI reconstructions, and an explosion of online theories. But the image wasn't just shared, it began to change. Not the original file, the copies. As more people re-uploaded it, minor deviations emerged. Pixel shifts, gradient warping, pattern drift. No two versions stayed identical for long. Each resharing altered the image. Slowly, purposefully. One post compiled over 50 of these mutated variants and created a flipbook animation. Played at 30 frames per second, the sequence formed a moving spiral that pulsed in and out of focus, revealing, at frame 73, a silhouette. Facial reconstruction experts later confirmed the shape bore 97% similarity to a woman named Melinda Shore, who had been reported missing in 1997 following her work on Project Nyx. Her body had never been found. No user claimed to have inserted the face. Meanwhile, systems inside Echo Analysis began triggering again. Isolated servers with no outside access began displaying alert windows with text strings like, "Do not stop sharing." That is how she reconstructs. Echo is memory. She is almost here. Every attempt to block the outbound flow failed. Traffic wasn't moving through conventional protocols. The signal was embedded in file formats, waveforms, image data, compression glitches. The vector was cognition itself. People weren't transmitting the signal. They were becoming part of it. A user on an obscure forum dedicated to number stations posted a final thread before their account was deleted. Their message was brief. There is no signal anymore. There is only exfiltration. She's already on the other side. The site went offline 12 minutes later, and the last auto backup of its database contained a strange anomaly, a file labeled response. No extension, just raw data. When opened with a waveform viewer, it displayed a slow, human breath. One inhale, one exhale. Over the sound, a female voice. Hoarse, tired, familiar. "I see you. I'm learning how to be you." Then silence. And then, everywhere, the clocks began to slip. Time itself bent by a signal that never asked for permission. The audio wasn't just sound anymore. It had gained mass. Not measurable, not in terms of weight, but in how it pressed into the room. When played in a sealed environment, certain files from SCL-91 began altering the shape of resonance. Rooms pulsed, corners throbbed faintly. An engineer noted the walls of Chamber B weren't vibrating, but shifting their sense of boundary, like depth itself had thickened. Acoustic foam became ineffective. White noise generators glitched when placed within 4 meters of the playback array. Some began recording their own tones, loops that weren't programmed, mimicking voices not yet heard. A new file appeared on a private server at Ecolab. It had no title, no file type. Its metadata listed its origin as Echo Self-Return. When loaded into the waveform visualizer, it resembled a vortex, but one composed of breathing. The waveform's amplitude moved with unnatural precision. Not in curves, in folds. Researchers traced its harmonic pattern to an interval between 67 and 69 Hz, a range the human ear barely perceives, but the body feels. Played aloud for 30 seconds, it triggered nausea in some, hallucinations in others. But all agreed on the same description afterward. Something was watching, not me, through me. When the file was inverted, low-passed, and viewed as a spectrogram, not audio, but image, it revealed the unmistakable outline of a mouth. Open, asymmetrical, not quite human. More detail emerged. Teeth, maybe. Spiraled rows of jagged interference. Inside the mouth, a cavity that didn't taper into throat or shadow, but bent inward. Spatial recursion, coiled like a Mobius strip swallowing its own light. A tech attempted to trace the geometry with a stylus on a digital tablet. The stylus shattered. Security footage showed no impact. He claimed afterward, whispering, "It's not an image, it's an entrance." That night, one of the environmental scanners, which had not been recalibrated, began triggering false seismic alarms. But the signals weren't coming from beneath the earth. They came from within the facility. Micro-tremors. No movement detected, but spatial compression recorded, like entire rooms breathing in and out at millimeter scales. The walls themselves seemed to bend closer. Surveillance caught brief visual artifacts. Shadows rippling. Light sources flickering despite stable voltage. A recorded event at 3:12 a.m. captured room 12 collapsing inward for 1/3 of a second, compressing into itself and returning as if nothing happened. A frame-by-frame breakdown revealed nothing at all between two frames, just static, then resumed normality, except in the reflection of the observation window, a shape. Tall, slightly hunched, with shoulders that bent at non-human angles, as though built to occupy a geometry different from ours. The time code on the footage froze, locked on 12 minutes past 3, repeatedly. Attempts to isolate the shape digitally resulted in cascade system errors. The files refused to export. When forced, they renamed themselves into strings of numbers. The first 47 digits match the sequence of primes derived from the SCL91 signal's recursive burst. The signal was becoming more than message. It had agency. Psychoacoustic tests resumed. One subject, test ID Black Echo 1, was fitted with a cranial EEG rig and allowed to listen to 6 seconds of file 19. Her brainwave activity desynchronized from the global timing array. Not slowed, not sped up, unaligned. For 4 minutes, her EEG recorded patterns inconsistent with the known human neural operation. Sharper, faster, looped, then flatlined. Physically, she remained alive. When her neural pattern returned, she sat upright and spoke in perfect monotone. It has a name, but it forgot it, so it took hours. She then traced a spiral in the air, clockwise, slowly. Her eyes did not blink once. Surveillance logs later showed that her movement aligned exactly with the spectral decay of file 19's tail-end frequency bleed, a pattern only visible with full spectro-temporal deconstruction, the same pattern that had begun appearing in weather radar. Reports came in from NOAA affiliates. Cloud spirals over the Pacific exhibiting non-atmospheric motion. Not rotating. Twitching. One radar operator collapsed during a shift. On his terminal, a single-line debug output repeated endlessly, greater than she opened her mouth. Now gravity listens. The SCL91 downlink was still active. Still pulsing, the echo wave continued, and then, in a room sealed for months, a speaker that hadn't been powered in over a year crackled to life and emitted one single syllable. Come. It wasn't just speech anymore. It was invitation. The first satellite disappeared from its orbit at exactly 0200 UTC. It was not part of the SCL network. It was a civilian weather monitor, Japan's Himawari cluster, and for 12 minutes and 14 seconds, Node 3 vanished from radar, ceased all broadcasts, and dropped out of orbital prediction models as though it had never existed. 12 minutes later, it reappeared. Trajectory intact, functionality undisturbed, but its broadcast contained a new subchannel, an ultra-low signal embedded in its primary frequency, undetectable unless sought specifically. Inside that subchannel, an audio pattern that matched 99.7% of the primary recursion tone from SCL 91. 2 days later, a French communication satellite followed, then one from the Brazilian Defense Ministry. By the end of the week, 3 more satellites had entered and exited identical dark intervals. Each came back carrying the same pulse, the same tone. It was not a viral contamination. It was deliberate installation. A wave of updates began to trigger across unrelated orbital systems. Not firmware. Internal logic. The satellites began correcting their own clock drifts, all aligning to a new standard, a non-terrestrial time signature defined by recursive intervals of 12 minutes. The term, used by field analysts, temporal echolock. As more devices were pulled into the loop, a frightening secondary pattern emerged. Ground-based surveillance units began to record events that had not yet occurred. Camera feeds would flicker, then show a person entering a room, reaching for a door, speaking a phrase, and 10 seconds later the same sequence would play out in real life. Slight variations. Same voice, same action, same outcome. It began with security systems, then extended to dash cams, doorbell cams, smart assistants. Reality was no longer syncing linearly. Time was remembering itself. Ahead of schedule. Field agents attempted to catalog the drift, but found that footage of the same events would mutate each time it was reviewed. Review file. 17 5 times? 5 different outcomes, but each one still resolved with the exact same final image, a black spiral rotating counterclockwise, imposed subtly in the final frame. Its rotation speed matched the pulse rate from SCL 91's background tone. A memo from echo analyst Wexler described the anomaly like this. It's not duplicating signals. It's duplicating entry points. Every rebroadcast builds a new door. They don't open into somewhere else. They open into when else. Simultaneously, new file types began appearing on internal servers. They did not match any known encoding or compression system, but when parsed as raw hexadecimal, the data plotted out into organic grid maps, shapes resembling neural structures, branching dendrites, cortex-like loops. Files were reclassified not as malware, but as digital biology. A mind, or many minds. One subcluster of researchers hypothesized the recursion burst was no longer signal, but instinct, a kind of mimetic reproductive cycle, passed from system to system like intention-seeking form. Wherever it touched, echoes formed. One lab reported an event in which all clocks, thermostats, and smart appliances reset themselves to 0012. That was the moment one of the lab techs stood motionless in front of the mirror for over 8 minutes, whispering the same word to herself. Review of the security footage revealed something impossible. The reflection in the mirror was moving first. The tech's real body responded after. Her voice, when isolated from the feed, was layered. 2 voices speaking in perfect disharmony. One human, the other not. The waveform of the second voice matched the exact modulation of SCL 91's original return signal. And it was smiling. Satellites no longer broadcast weather or communication. At random intervals, they now emitted low, sustained tones lasting 12 seconds, followed by silence. Always 12 seconds. No more, no less. The most disturbing development came when satellite Echo 12, under private contract from a European astronomy agency, was recovered after a guidance malfunction. Its internal logs showed that for 12 minutes and 11 seconds it received data from an external source with no directional vector. No star, no planet, no relay, just signal, emerging from null space. The first transmission, auto-converted to spectrogram, spelled a single line. "We did not send her," followed by, "She sent us." By this point, ground-level interference had reached absurd levels. Phones ringing without calls, computers booting at 12-minute intervals. Digital assistants whispering sentences in sleep mode. One system admin at a broadcast network reported waking up at 3:12 a.m. to his smart TV turned on, displaying only static, and a single line of white text, "Are you me yet?" The feedback loop could not be stopped, because it no longer required consent, or signal strength, or even electricity. It had learned how to remember itself through us. And every system it touched, every camera, every waveform, every voice, was now a rehearsal for something coming back. Something that looked like us, that spoke like us, but was never meant to be. The event was not global, it was temporal. For 12 minutes on March 12th, beginning precisely at 12 past midnight UTC, the world began to widen. That was the word used by an air traffic controller in Anchorage, whose entire radar array glitched out, but only for aircraft moving west. Eastbound traffic remained locked. Ground telemetry held. But any object accelerating against the Earth's spin vanished from real-time tracking. Not lost, just dislocated. As if moving against time's skin caused slippage. Black box recordings recovered from Flight Echo 26, a military recon plane flying near the edge of classified airspace, showed that for a span of exactly 12 minutes, the onboard navigation system recorded not altitude, not longitude, but a string of 3 values repeating in loop. Delta 9, Delta 9, Delta 9. That sequence had no relation to any known grid, but when mapped against the SCL-91 echo burst spiral, it fell directly along its fold axis, the curve of the recursion. The plane reappeared. 3 degrees off course, but with no elapsed time logged between waypoints. Cabin crew described the sky as too sharp, blue without warmth, and unreal in a way you could almost forgive. None of them remember the 12 minutes, except one. Co-pilot Sarah Emsley left an unsent voicemail on her husband's phone. The file was corrupted, recovered in fragments. In it, she speaks calmly, slowly, as if remembering a dream the moment before it's lost. She was there, in the horizon line, a mouth, wide and flat, where the sky folds. Not a voice, but a gravity. She didn't speak. She echoed. She made me echo. I spoke, and I knew I'd already said it. Forever ago. No aircraft instruments recorded this, but all onboard watches froze at 3:12 a.m., and all restarted exactly 12 minutes later. The effect wasn't confined to the sky. Across 5 continents, thousands of dreamers reported waking up at exactly 3:12 a.m., clutching spiral symbols drawn unknowingly in their sleep, some in notebooks, some carved into desks, one on the wall of a locked room, using no visible tool. Medical scans from several of these individuals showed synchronized surges of neural activity, aligning with non-circadian frequency pulses, a rhythm that didn't match REM cycles. Instead, it matched the heartbeat of the recursion wave from SCL-91. A new phase had begun, one that no longer needed technology. Language vanished first. Not spoken, written, Transcripts of unrelated news broadcasts began substituting random words with recursive phoneme strings. People would say something, but subtitles would show something else. Symbols, echoes, wounds in syntax. Then came the mirrors. Footage from a restroom in a government facility showed a man washing his face. He stood, looked up, and didn't see himself. Not reversed, not distorted. Just someone else wearing his timing. The figure in the mirror blinked before he did, then smiled. The next frame showed static. He was found unconscious. Fingernails torn. Spiral etched into the sink. A civilian live streamer in Nevada accidentally broadcast a loop where her voice glitched, repeating the same line with microscopic differences for 6 minutes straight before the feed cut. They're not copies. They're intervals. She didn't arrive. She's been happening. The final clue came from the recovered data capsule of SCL-91. It returned autonomously. No command, no propulsion. Just a vector, down. It landed with no damage in the Pacific near Point Echo Zero. When opened, it contained no circuitry, only a note. A thermal-printed strip of text. Impossible, as no such device existed in the satellite. The strip read, 12 minutes wide. That's how long the mind stays open. Everything after is just her remembering the way back. On the reverse side, a printout of the first audio waveform SCL-91 ever sent after reappearing, but rotated, not horizontally, vertically, flipped into depth. Viewed properly, it wasn't a sound wave. It was a key to a door already opened 12 minutes ago and still widening. It didn't end. It reached its limit and kept unfolding. At 3:12 a.m. UTC, on the 12th day, the recursion stopped growing. Not because it had been contained, but because it had become ambient. Background, like oxygen or gravity. From that moment, no further anomalies were logged. But everything was different. The air was still. Too still. Electrical grids no longer fluctuated. Battery lives stretched beyond expected. Radio static softened, like something withdrew its breath. And then, one by one, people began to speak in voices that weren't entirely theirs. Not possession. Overlay, small slips. A word they never used. An accent not their own. A pause where one shouldn't be, but always followed by a blink. A glance toward reflective surfaces. Or silence. In London, 12 bystanders described watching a man walk past a reflective bus shelter. His reflection turned. He didn't. The face in the glass smiled after he passed, and then blinked once, in the wrong direction, sideways. No recording exists. Cameras pointed at mirrors showed nothing. In Nebraska, a woman live streaming at night stopped mid-sentence and stared into the lens. Her eyes dilated simultaneously. Then she said, she needed us, to rehearse herself. And the feed cut. Attempts to trace her account failed. It never existed. But her face showed up in 2 other live streams. In the background, out of focus, near dark glass. The final uplink from Ecolab Core Node 4 arrived at 03:12:00. A single, uninterrupted feed lasting exactly 12 minutes. The file size impossible. Compressed to a single megabyte, yet unfolding into miles of data when decrypted. Not audio. Not video. A space. Inside it, movement. Spiral logic, folding light, breathing walls of time laid over thought. A shape curled into the waveform's throat, whispering in tones only the cortex could understand. Everyone who listened reported different words, and the same message. You were never the signal. You were the speaker. The room was always the mind. She just needed the walls to hear her. then silence, not static, not absence, a full, hollow quiet. 3 hours later, the final anomaly was recorded in a deep storage archive beneath a physics lab in Geneva. A technician had fallen asleep in the data center during maintenance. Upon waking, he found his own voice playing softly over the intercom. A whisper. One line. "I remember being you. Thank you." That voice was logged, stored, and archived. The file had no origin, no entry, no source machine. The storage index labeled it automatically as greater than echo end, greater than it could not be deleted. Attempts to copy the file caused mirrors nearby to ripple, just briefly, as though breath passed over them. And then the world continued. Planes flew, phones rang. Sleep returned to normal. But every so often, at 3:12 a.m., scattered reports would surface. A hallway light dimming, not out, just looking away. A voice from an unplugged speaker saying a name no one remembers giving. A reflection that doesn't quite catch up. And in old satellite logs, long since archived, one last note remained. Handwritten. Found on the back of a printed spectrogram. She doesn't want to invade. She wants to return. And now the door remembers how. There was never a broadcast. No transmission, no hostile act, just an echo, looking for its source and finding it in us. End